The 100-100T Thieves players were panicking. "Where is Sean?" said Will Cheng. "I don't know," replied his teammate, Derek Ha. It had been a whole day since they had seen their head coach Sean Geras, and it was only 30 minutes before their opening match against Fnatic. All of a sudden a bright white light appeared and a deep dark voice spoke out. "You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits." A silence broke out. Then appeared Sean Geras, laughing, saying, "Nah, I'm just messing with you. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. You know when Gandalf the White comes out and pretends to be Saruman at the start of the Two Towers film?" The players were confused. "Anyway," he continued, "I've been across the world. Yesterday I was on the coastal cliffs of the Atacama Desert. Also I can teleport now. And I have all the knowledge you will ever need to win this game. Simply let me touch your forehead." One by one the players lined up to have the wisdom imparted on them. Sean Geras' finger began to glow like an ET. And he shared with them all that he had seen from his eons of meditation. Let's see how it went. So yesterday we're going to take a look at a Fnatic versus 100 Thieves on Pearl, which was an interesting game for sure. Mostly, I think, because of the comps. Both teams running kind of interesting comps, I will say. 100 Thieves running a no chamber comp on Pearl, which I think is quite cool. And also Fnatic running the Neon, which is something I don't think I've seen a team do yet. Maybe someone has somewhere, but not off the top of my head. So I was very interested to see how this kind of went. And I think overall the difference in this game was I think 100 Thieves used their comp a bit better. I'm not saying one comp is better than the other or that these are bad comps at all. I just think that they used it a bit better. And I think one example here is on the bonus round, on the pistol round, sorry, in this very first round of the game where Fnatic are going to go with these three players here down towards A long. You've got the Chamber, you've got the Sky, and you've got the Fade all down towards A long. And they did this idea multiple times, okay? They're going to throw a Fade Haunt. They're going to do a little recall Astra Star here just by the box. They're going to flash through that. You do see that Will just got flashed there and runs back and then try and get a kill on it. Thing is, unfortunately in this instance, Mystic dies just before there, and basically we end up in a 4v5. But this idea from Fnatic is a bit weird to me with their comp, right? Because they did this multiple times, whether you'd call this a default or whatnot. But these three players, these same three, the Chamber, the Sky, and the Fade, would run down A long. You've got the Neon holding just here in mid, and Boaster is holding towards B on the Astra. But this is a bit weird to me because normally you would have the Neon, the Neon as the entry, the Neon is kind of going with the initiators, that sort of makes more sense. And maybe there is a good reason for it, but I didn't really see one in this game of why the Neon is left alone here and why this is the Chamber and why these two aren't swapped. Because if you have the Neon here, obviously the Neon can get there, and disrupt timings and get there faster than the enemy is expecting. Maybe it can even come around the other side of the box in time for that flash to come around, right, and create a different angle. All of those things seem much more possible with a Neon than it is a Chamber. And also what happened later on in this game is at one point, 100 Thieves did push mid. And Alfia just got caught out because he doesn't really have anything to, he just has to dry swing if he's going to see if someone is in mid. And he doesn't have a, amazing way of escaping either if he's caught off guard by it. And he, ended up dying in that round and giving 100 Thieves a gun against a save. Whereas, if this is a Chamber, you have the TPs, set up in case someone does come out and you can feel more free to kind of swing and, take a look at really what's going on in mid. It just seems like it would be better off if they were swapped. And it kind of cost them, I think, a bit, Fnatic, this idea. Because it did work sometimes, but anytime they got a kill from this kind of idea of sending the 3 down A, it was often Mystic getting the kill after a Sky Flash. It wasn't Durka getting anywhere with it. So, yeah, seems a bit weird. And then as we play the rest of this round out, Fnatic are going to eventually group up and come back towards this B site here. Which is something they did a lot, actually. And for a no Viper team, I was kind of interested to see that they went towards this B site a lot. So they're kind of trying to create this distraction with Durka here on A. I do like where he has this little Chamber rendezvous place, though. This is quite cool, just in this corner here that allows you to TP from here. Quite a cool idea there from Fnatic. I think that one works pretty well. He does get smoked off, as you could see, but he kind of is faking a bit of pressure. He TPs away and he's going to come and leave and come back towards B with the rest of his team, as you can see there. So Fnatic do start to come into B, but Asna does really well here, right? He's kind of alone on this B site. He doesn't overpeak. They're in a 5v4. He just kind of stays back, waits for the rest of his team. But Fnatic go exploring, and I think this is a really powerful idea that they did a couple times, which is push spawn. I think it worked really well on the whole. You're going to see that a nade comes in here and it kind of splits the two apart though, and Althea goes forward, but Boaster goes back, and unfortunately Althea gets caught out there. Good nade by Will to separate those two players, and he gets a kill for it. And then eventually 100 Thieves here, they're gonna manage to pick off Boaster there, and then they have this Sage Wall. Asuna living there really big. He just puts up this Sage Wall here, has to then run around the whole other side of Elbow. But just starts sticking the spike, and there's nothing really Fnatic can do at this point with their pistols, and it's a pretty easy win for 100 Thieves. And now let's come to round number 6, and actually by this point Fnatic had gone B quite a lot, but they decided to go for an A hit this time, and it worked pretty well. We still have this same kind of what I will call a default look, where the 3 players are coming down here towards A. You see we've got the recalled star again. Asuna's going to try and put up this wall. He actually turns the flash pretty well, puts a slow up, and actually walls up, but doesn't realize that Durka is quite so far up, and actually gets boosted on top of the wall instead. And so Fnatic, get this early A lobby control that they probably want from this kind of default, and then they come back towards mid, but then they see that the Viper's Pit is up in mid instead, so they don't really want to challenge that, so they're going to dog in, see where this Viper is. Obviously, I think initially they were thinking, maybe let's do an A split, but then they realized, Viper's Pit's here. Maybe let's not do an A split because it is quite difficult to do, obviously, through that Viper's Pit. So they decide instead to come back towards A, as you can see. Boaster's going to go and try and lurk up through mid, as you see here. He's just making his way across. But they're going to do a really nice little exec here. As you see the pings start to come onto the map, they're going to go in. They actually get fade ulted back when they come in, but it's just really well done from them. It doesn't make a difference really. So they start to come in, as you'll see just here. We're going to get a really nice view of it just here. Stars come in, fade sees, bounces off this. I don't know if this is meant, but it's kind of cool that it just bounces off this and comes into there. Neon wall goes up, stars go down, flash comes in here. That actually does catch Asuna, as you can see. Fade ult comes in from 100 Thieves, but Althea kind of knows that fade ult has come from this direction, slides into the smoke, manages to get a kill. Then Asuna gets revealed by a Fade Horn up on the tree as well. So really, really nice exec overall from Fnatic there. And then Althea is going to even push this smoke and manage to find Stella, catch him off guard as well, find that kill, and we end up in a 5v2. And eventually Althea, well, he tries to go for an ace eventually, as he'll kill Bang there as well, but unfortunately he will be denied his ace on 10 HP by Will just there. But then eventually Boaster will mop up Will and find this final kill, and Fnatic will get a good round on the board. And this really, I think, was probably the best round that they had in terms of just a full exec, but it was a very nice one, as you see. And now let's come to round 12, and this game did teach me something about some pretty strong positions for post-plant here on B, because Fnatic did this a couple of times and really did reap the benefits. They're just going to go for a full B hit. Boaster here, I think he is guilty of this a bit too much, particularly on Astra, where he's just going to get a bit too greedy, I think, and 2 people are going to run into him, and he's just going to get caught out and die here to Will. As he just runs into them. I think he is just a bit too aggressive sometimes, and he does die a lot, like in those positions. But Fnatic come in on towards B, and come all the way across, and they get deep into the site. They send the Fade Horn up there, but now Althea in this 4v5, he's going to push spawn, and then he's going to push heaven. And this is the thing that I think I've learned from this game. The pushing heaven as the attackers for this post plant is incredibly strong. And Althea now, this is impossible to win for 100 Thieves. Literally impossible. With him in here, he got a free kill on Asuna, who is, looking down here and does not expect it at all. If you can do this, it is just super strong. Because now the rest of his team can just play back here, and all 3 of these players have a massive problem. How do you deal with that guy, right? Are you going to waste all the time to come back here to maybe just take a one-on-one fight, and that you could easily lose either way? Right? It's just such a difficult situation for them. It's such a tricky area to have to clear out all of a sudden, and it causes them massive, massive problems, as you will see. Because as Will is, wondering where he is, and he's getting shot at, Mystic manages to kill him. And now Stella, right, he's going to use his orb to try and smoke him off. The problem is, Althea can just come out at any time, right? He can just wait for the tap of the spike and come out at any time. Now, Mystic plays this pretty well as they smoke off the spike. Mystic just goes into the smoke first, and so manages to get that kill. But it's such a hard position to be in, because at any point he could just wrap around, he could come out of heaven and just come down here instead if he wanted to and avoid that smoke, right? There's just a ton of different possibilities for Althea, and as long as he lives in there, he is a massive, massive problem for 100 Thieves. And I think Fnatic did this a couple times, and they absolutely destroyed the post plant anytime they managed to get control of heaven, because it is such a strong position to hold. Now let's come to round 16, which is a crazy crazy round indeed, and you'll see it at the end. Now, I should have mentioned before, Fnatic were going for this NRG half-buy stuff. Yeah, I don't think it really made a difference on Pearl. I think there was some rounds on Haven where it might have made a difference, but on Pearl, I didn't really notice any big differences coming out of the fact that they were only buying light shields. But maybe there was one or two instances that if you went back and checked, you could find. But it's gonna be the main talking point for a lot of people, but I don't really think that was the main thing that cost them this game. I think the fact that they didn't play that well was the main reason that they lost this game. So actually, 100 Thieves, as you can see, come in towards mid. Will actually pops his ult, but just misses Enzo there, and actually retreats. But what we're about to see in time is that 100 Thieves are going to go towards A. It was quite interesting that actually 100 Thieves kind of had a lean towards A, whereas, you know, Fnatic were kind of leaning more towards B in general. Quite an interesting thing. And I think we have seen that from quite a few teams, that certain teams seem to just prefer going to one site, maybe because the map is new, right? And, you know, they're just sticking to what they know. But eventually what's going to happen here is 100 Thieves get very deep down in towards R, as you can see. And some of the Fnatic setups, I think, were a bit maybe too passive. I think they played a bit too passive overall. This is one of those instances where, you know, both Boaster and Mystic are incredibly deep. You know, they do have the chamber trap here as well, but they've got, you know, no one watching this whatsoever. They were a bit passive at times, Fnatic, and in this instance, they do let them in onto the site. Well, we get the use of the Sage as well, right? And this is a thing where this is like the part that reminds me of Split, right? When the devs are talking about this map, they're like, oh, this is a bit like Split. But really, this map isn't a ton like Split. There's parts of it that are like Split, but this is perhaps the most like Split part of it, which is the Sage Wall here is very reminiscent of a Sage Wall in like B Heaven on Split. Because you're basically trying to stop someone from coming behind you as you come into sight, much like you would do on Split B Heaven side. You know, that was the common wall to do, and 100 Thieves basically did the same thing, where you wall this off, so to make sure that as you're coming in onto the site from deep here, you know, you can't be reflanked from here very quickly by the defenders. So a very good Sage Wall. I think it's probably one of the main uses of a Sage Wall if you are going to use it. 100 Thieves actually come in with the Astra ult as well, as you can see there, and they managed to plant the spike, and they are going to all come back towards the A lobby position, as you can see, but they run into Enzo, who manages to get one before being traded out. A bit crazy, and we end up in a 4v4. This is going to be insane what happens next, because Neon Wall comes up, Boaster gets on the defuse, right, and he starts sticking it. Learned from his mistake before, but a snakebite goes down on the spike, and there's an Astra Suck, and there's a Seize, right? And so we're going to go to Boaster's POV here. This Seize is going off. He got hit by the Fade Horn. The Viper's Molly, though, came in before the Fade Seize landed, okay? So what's happening to his health, if you watch it, is the Fade Seize gives you decay, but it goes up over time. But the Molly is bringing him down. So what's happening is basically he is going up and down, and you'll see the number of the health, it just starts jumping from one to the other as one is going up and the other is bringing it down. But then also we've got this Astra Suck, but the Astra Suck isn't enough to actually pull him off the spike. It was slightly misplaced, it was too close to the spike, and he's still able to stick it. So you see here his health is just jumping in the 20s, and then it slowly goes down. But then what happens is he gets vulnerable. Okay, now the Astra Suck, you know, is complete, and he gets vulnerable. So now, even though it's still going up on the decay, he's taking double damage now. So now it starts going down a bit quicker, and just before he defuses the spike, he actually dies there. A crazy sequence of events overall. But then Mystic is just going to jump back on it and actually manages to defuse it anyway. So yeah, Fnatic do actually end up winning the round, even though everyone dies. But a crazy round either way, and I just thought, you know, I needed to show that to you. And now let's come to round 21. And again, some of Fnatic's setups and the way they played the defensive side, I wasn't too impressed with on the whole. I think if you're going to play Neon, you have to be somewhat aggressive on the defensive side, right? Like, that's why I think Fracture is by far Neon's best map, because you want to play aggressive on the defensive side, and you want to play aggressive on the attacking side as well. So it suits Neon very well. But, you know, when you aren't playing too aggressive, and Fnatic played very passive, I think, here. And they have this chamber trap here, okay? And they did this a couple times in the game, and this is a round that they do it as well. And actually, 100 Thieves are on a save this round. But you're going to see that the setup, I mean, with where this chamber trap is placed, right, they've got two people ahead of it, and Boaster is almost joining in as well to have, like, a heavy, heavy defense. And 100 Thieves were, you know, going towards Arc quite a lot, but this seems like, you know, maybe a bit of overkill, because it leaves Enzo in a bit of a tricky position here, because what's going to happen is 100 Thieves come in with the Fade Haunt there, and they are going to explore that area of the map between the double doors here, and Enzo's going to be in a bit of a tricky situation. As you can see, Dirk can just see the head there. And he just misses that shot and has to TP away. But what happens is this smoke goes up, right? And he has no idea what's going on. If we look at the map, there is no reason why they can't have pushed there, and Fnatic seem, like they haven't fully reacted to that. And then there's nothing stopping them from even going all the way to spawn. And this is against a save. And against a save, generally what you want is you just don't want it to be chaotic. You just want it to play out as a normal round, and you should be okay as long as you have the guns. And actually Fnatic are going to win this round, but even if 100 Thieves just had one gun, I think they very easily could have won this round, because they're going to end up in some situations and with some fights where, it's very possible that they could have won the round. So now what's happening is they kind of abandon A, right? So now there's a potential timing where, potentially someone could have walked all the way through A as they kind of leave that, because they realize Enzo didn't have sight on this, so they've kind of left this for a second. And so, Boaster's kind of left in this weird position. Eventually 100 Thieves do come back towards ARP, but now, they've got Will in this very pushed up position as well. Fnatic actually go exploring here towards A and, end up in a 1-for-1, which is absolutely fine for 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves start to walk in. They destroy the chamber trap. Boaster is there. He starts spamming down. But this is the fight, really. The Boaster is going to manage to win this fight against Will, who only has a Stinger. If Will had, maybe even a Spectre there, he could have won that fight. And if he wins that fight, this round is a very, very bad round for Fnatic. Because if you imagine Boaster dies here, gives up a gun, all of a sudden this becomes a possibility. They have no control over this. This is a problem as well, right? There's a lot of different issues for Fnatic all of a sudden. But Boaster does manage to win that fight. And this is what I mean, where some of their defensive setups, I wasn't too impressed with. He manages to get another kill before being traded as well. We end up in a 2v3, right? And again, this is still fairly winnable, you would say, overall for 100 Thieves, but ultimately with the time running low, right, they don't quite know where to go, and that fight that Boaster won against Will was really the difference maker in this round. But against the save, I was just thinking, like, that shouldn't have had to be the difference maker in this round, and they will mop up here as 100 Thieves just have to run in onto the site. But yeah, I wasn't too overly thrilled with Fnatic, some of their defensive setups. But then it came Sean Garrus, because in the very next round, after that round, he called a timeout, because Fnatic had been using this chamber trap here, and obviously they'd seen it a couple times at this point, and so I guess he assumed that they were going to use it again, and so he came up with this round, which is a really, really genius round, where they're going to start with some quick pressure towards A. They send a Sage lineup that I think hits towards the back of the site, and they start to come in. You send a Fade Seize here, you send a Prowler in as well. You fake like this is going to be a very fast A play, and Fnatic actually are going for a 3-push down B this round. But you see the Fatal comes in as well, and they fake a lot of this pressure. But all of this, because actually what's happened is there's only 2 players here now, and actually 3 of them are coming back the other way instead, right? So they're faking like it's a 5-man pressure this way, but they're just trying to basically expose this chamber trap. Can't actually see anyone here, and thinking that this player here, Enzo, will be in this exact position if he thinks that this is a 5-man hit, right? If you think this is a 5-man hit from just A main, you're going to be, somewhere in this position, and this chamber trap isn't going to help you, right? And so that is kind of what they were exposing here, 100 Thieves, as they continue to do that. So these 3 players come around this corner. Enzo is just looking over here, right? And they get a free kill. And so, now obviously they're in a lot of trouble here, Fnatic, as 100 Thieves continue to come in onto the site. They put the Astra ult down there as well. And yeah, you can see that this is a pretty difficult situation for them to win. As you can see, they do have people on the flank. Bang catches off Durka there as well. And we end up in this 5v3, and Boaster will actually fall in time here on the site as well, as you can see just there. We end up in a 5v2, and well, obviously from this position, it's pretty easy for the side of 100 Thieves, even though they do give up that first kill. They will manage to win this round pretty convincingly, and I thought this was just, yeah, a bit of a very good idea from Sean and, or whoever called it. I imagine it's Sean if it was coming off the back of a timeout, to expose that kind of deeper chamber trap and, kind of fake that 5-man A hit. I thought it was really, really good idea overall, and they won the round because of it, and they would go on to win the next round as well and win the map. So 100 Thieves looked pretty good, I would say, but I would more say Fnatic didn't play as well as I think they can, and definitely have done before. They seemed a bit shaky, a bit timid, a bit nervous at times, and so 100 Thieves, they played well, don't get me wrong, very well you might say, but I think Fnatic definitely can play better and will need to play better if they want to do well in this tournament.